Here we are again. This is Mike Lodge. I am the business advisor. Spent some time this morning watching Queen Elizabeth's funeral, being laid to rest for the final time. Now you have to look at this lady who literally was the mother of country. Not just one country, but a whole bunch of countries. Even in America, I think we consider her as our queen sometimes. We look at her lovingly. We look at her respectfully. Because we know that as queen, she was a leader. Now, she was a leader that never got involved politically. She was a leader that stayed out of the politics. But when the prime ministers came once a week to talk to her, they came out with abundance of knowledge. She had been with a lot of these leaders around the world before. She knew even their fathers, some of them, brothers and sisters. She was a leader that managed well. Part of her management was based upon her faith. Faith in God, faith in the church, faith in mankind, that they would do better in bad times. But that faith, that devotion, that everyday constant need for God to be in her life, in that who she prayed to on a daily basis. You see, I truly believe that leaders need faith, because faith leads to ethics. Faith leads to good. Faith leads to making good decisions. Faith is an important part of all of our lives. Some of you have a different type of faith. Some of you have a different type of religion. But in the end, it's faith is what drives us to moral decisions, where we put people first, and it leads us to that service that is so needed by a nation. When she was young and her father had died, she had made that promise to all of her nations. I will devote my life until the day that she died. And she lived up to the promise that she had made to her people. Even to this day, as she was being laid to rest, you saw the people along the streets and you saw their faces, and they wanted to be there. They wanted to be united as a nation in support of a queen that led them. Now, sometimes she had issues, she had problems, but when she dealt with those problems, she left it in God's hands. I believe that when she gets up to heaven, God is going to say, you know what? You were faithful to the very end. A lot of us, when we begin our lives in business or in service of some kind, we forget about the word service. A lot of times, greed comes into our lives, and we think, how much power can I get? How much power can this job provide me in the money, in the benefits, in the deals? And when that thought process goes through, we forget about the word service, and we forget about the words of ethics. We forget about morality. I think a lot of us, if we want to change a nation, we have to believe in service. Not just political service, but I'm talking about the type of service that comes from the heart, and we sit down in our neighborhoods, in our communities, in our churches, in our families, and we say, how can I be of better service to my community? How can I be of better service to my church, to the children in my community, to the elderly in my community? You see, so many times in this nation, we get so caught up in the politics, and politics is not a moral or ethical choice. That is an evil choice. Politics, I think, is part of that scheme of the devil to come in between all of us who should love each other as Americans, and we forget about this love and we go straight to hate. Because that's what division does. When people try to divide us, it's based on hate. It's not based upon a love for you or a love of wanting to help you or to serve you. Division is a power struggle. And we see this power struggle every single day. And we have forgotten, you and I have forgotten about what we are to do in service. We can do a lot. We can change a lot. The Queen was loyal to the people of the United Kingdom. If you look at her past Christmas messages and messages to the nation during the pandemic, it was messages of hope. It was messages of we will get through this. We will, because we have the strength. And if we unite together, we can get through anything. I see that in her message after message after message. Because that was her belief. That was her faith. She had faith in her people. Because she knew that God was going to lead them. We are a people that forget too easily. We have these little demons within ourselves that say, you know what, if you do this, you can have more power, you can get up the ladder, you can do all this stuff. You can be president of the United States. And once you have that need for power, you forget about the need to serve. And you make bad decisions. Decisions that are based upon a political agenda instead of a need of the American people. The Queen always put her people first. She always was thinking about them. She always listened to them. Listening is that greatest part of leadership that is needed. If you're in business, if you're in church service, if you are a school leader, wherever you are leading, the leading part of your life is listening. She listened. When her prime ministers would come in with the problems and the weight of the world upon them, she would listen. Sometimes the most powerful act is listening. Service. I tell you, I don't know how I can say that word even stronger to you, that service is so very important. If you see politicians out there that are not willing to serve you, they're the wrong politicians. They're the wrong leaders. If they're not thinking about the American people, and if they're thinking more upon a political agenda of their political party, that's not leadership. That is not service. So as we begin to think about this process of leadership, all last week we talked about leadership. But this week we actually saw a lady, a queen, who was laid to rest, who served 70 years and never complained. She did her duty. She had her faith. She had her ethics. And she had that love of people. And not one time was she political. Not one time. As a leader, she didn't have to be political. But what she was a teacher. She taught us how to serve. And I hope that the British people see how important it is to serve. And to hold their politicians accountable. And I hope that we in America hold our politicians accountable. If they're not serving us, it's time for them to go. If we are not serving our communities, it's time for us to rethink our positions and say, okay, I have got to put some elbow grease into this community of mine, into this church of mine, into this school of mine, into these students of mine, who, whatever you may be in the business that you are building, and the people that you are hiring, you've got to remind them that service is so very important. Because without service, we don't have a country. Without service, we don't have the ability to move forward and build a strong country, an ethical country, a moral country, a service country. We don't have that ability if we don't have people that want to serve. If we continue to go on with these political agendas that are filled with hate, with people calling other fellow Americans names, we are not going to get very far. We are not going to be able to grow very far because we don't have the love in our heart to serve. Instead, we have the hate for those who get in our way for the power that we want. Greed, fame, fortune, money, all those things that in the end hurt other people. But when you serve, you help so many people. Let's learn from what the Queen has taught us. In her 70 years, she served every single day. Let's serve. Instead of all this fighting and hateful commentary and hateful words and blaming each other and pointing fingers at each other, let's sit down and let's start talking about how we can serve. Rest in peace, Elizabeth. You were loved by billions and respected by billions.